Hello everybody and welcome to the podcast. But it's not a podcast, it's a YouTube channel. My name is Alex Davis and I am going to be your host for the remainder of this YouTube video. Today, as you read the topic of the title, we are going to be learning how to start your own podcast from scratch, from the beginning. And who better to learn it from than me, Alex Davis, the co-host and actual host of Finally Ready to Grow. Let's get into it. It's incredibly important that you start your own podcast, right? Wrong. You don't actually want to start a podcast in 2021. The market is oversaturated. You will never learn anything. And precisely the point why you should start one. It's kind of confusing, honestly, but just understand what's really going into a podcast. You're not just going to set up a microphone, talk into it for a little bit, and all of a sudden become Joe Rogan. You have more success at being famous if you go on TikTok. Podcasts, I've been doing one for 1.5 years, and I barely have scratched the surface to how many views I can get, what my audience can be like, but it's still a very fun process if you like to do this, talking into a microphone about absolutely anything you'd like for an extensive period of time, making sure your mouth dries out, and you ultimately have a sore throat. But you want to know how to start a podcast? There's millions of ways to do it, but this video is going to teach you the absolute extensive version and the ultimate guide to actually starting a podcast from beginning to end, and hopefully through that process you can not only do this but also make some money while you're trying it. Alright, step number 1. This is the most important step when it comes to starting a podcast. You need to understand what you want your podcast to even be about. The topic. This is where a lot of people get stumped, and this is why a lot of people don't start a podcast. But you're here, and I'm going to teach you how to do it the most effective way possible. So, analyze in your life what you're really, really good at, analyze in your life what you're really, really passionate about, and analyze in your life what you really, really hate. These 3 things. Jot them on a piece of paper, write them down in 3 little columns, because we're going to play a little experiment. You need to find out what you're good at talking about, what you're passionate about, and also what you hate. Why will you hate? That doesn't make any sense. Well, think about it like this. If you really hate people that smoke, you should probably try to figure out a way for people to stop smoking, or at least make a podcast about it. If you're passionate about it enough and you also have the skills to back that up. If you happen to be a veterinarian and you want to stop people from smoking, it's probably not the best option. But like me, if you're really into self-help, if you're really passionate about it, and you happen to read a lot of books about it, and you also hate people that have a poor mindset, then make a podcast pertaining to self-help, developing an awesome self, and becoming the best person you can be. So, if you're really good at cooking, and you're really passionate about making some awesome food, and you really hate when your boyfriend doesn't make you food at night, then make a podcast about how to make some simple meals in the kitchen at all times. If you're really passionate about business, and you really enjoy making money, and you're really good at learning simple concepts and breaking them down for people to understand in layman's terms, and you hate it when people start talking about money but they don't understand what the heck they're talking about, or even when people are financially illiterate, then you can make a podcast about simple financial literacy. Now, I'm making these topics very simple because people that listen to podcasts want to learn something. And if you're a Harvard MBA and all of a sudden you're just spewing out words and people don't understand what you're saying, then no laymen are going to watch your episodes, and not every single person is a Harvard graduate, so not every person is going to be able to understand exactly what you're saying in your specific jargon. Now, maybe it sounds cool, but again, if the person cannot understand the message you are trying to convey to them, they won't even know if you're talking about eggs, chickens, or if you're talking about complete sausage. Like, it doesn't even matter, man. You need to make sure that the topics that you're expressing to your audience, communicating effectively, you are passionate about, you are competent with, and you also hate when people are doing the opposite thing. The second step to starting a podcast is now figuring out the name. You want to figure out a name for your podcast. Now, if we're going back to the cooking example, you can name it simply Cooking with Diana. Insert your name where Diana would be. Cooking with... Now, you need to make sure the podcast name isn't already taken. A lot of them are because there's a lot of podcasts. But you need to stand out as some way, shape, or form. We kind of made a simple way to actually figure out what you want to talk about, but now you actually have to come up with an interesting name, an intriguing title that will draw people's attention. You can have a name associated with it. Cooking with Diana, The Joe Rogan Show. We have The Tim Ferriss Show. We have things like Lewis Howes School of Greatness. So you can insert your name and make it whatever you want. Mine is simply Finally Ready to Grow. There's a little bit of a backstory to that title, and so it has a little bit of special meaning to me. You can do that with your own podcast. You can do a play on words. You know, there's podcasts like Slow Growth or Millionaire Money or something like that. Like you can have a play on words or make things like alliteration or connotation. Anything that makes the name actually sound pristine, and you want it to sound professional, obviously, but you want it to sound a little bit different. It's like you're talking about money, but you're talking about it in such a different way. You need to reflect that in the title so that people are more intrigued to watch your show as opposed to the Alex Davis podcast. No one's going to watch that because no one knows who Alex Davis is. Finally Ready to Grow has a little bit more twang because people think finally ready to grow, okay, I'm finally ready to make a change in my life to grow into the person. It's like finally ready to go. Are you finally ready to go somewhere? I'm finally ready to grow. So there's different ways you can play words and have fun with it. Like I wasn't being very specific, and I wasn't giving you the specific details because I can't tell you what your show is going to be about because I don't even know you. But the point is to try to make it sound unique, but also don't get too caught up on it and make it simple so people can understand it and people know what the heck you're talking about. The third step to starting your own podcast would actually be recording an episode. Now, before you record an episode, you need to understand what style of podcast you're going to be doing. A lot of podcasts are interview style. A lot of podcasts can be solo host. There's the Mindset Mentor, who's a solo host who occasionally has guests on his podcast. There's Lewis Howes School of Greatness, Jay Shetty's On Purpose, Tim Ferriss. We have Joe Rogan, where they all bring guests onto the podcast and make it more specific and a little bit more sophisticated for their audience. That way, they don't need to actually worry about credibility because they're bringing credibility onto the show. If you're going to do a style like this, just understand you won't be able to reach out to anybody and interview them. Matter of fact, I just interviewed Alpha M. That was a pretty hard interview to pull off. But again, it takes time, it takes energy, all the things behind the scenes that you don't see when you're listening to Joe Rogan. Those are the types of things you're going to actually have to be wary about and understand when you're walking in. When I first started Finally Ready to Grow, I had no ambitions of even interviewing anybody. I just was so ambitious and wanted to start talking into the microphone that I just sat down and did it. So start doing whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. If you have 2 microphones, if you had an audio recorder, if you have some guests that you think would have an interesting story to share, then sure, bring them on. Bring the podcast on and make it an interview style. But I'm saying that there's going to be a little bit upfront capital that's going to be involved with starting your own interview style. Now, there are shows like Smartless with Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and also you know they bring on different guests onto their show, and then there's also Sean. So you need to understand that there are different interview styles, and you can have as many guests and many hosts as you like. Just understand the way in which it gets more complicated as you are adding more people onto one interface. It gets more expensive, and it also just gets more complicated because more people are talking at the same time. Impulsive has 2 guests and 2 hosts, I believe so. If I'm wrong, then Logan Paul, that's okay. But still, you can have fun no matter what you're doing. Just make sure it's something you're passionate about and something that you're willing to invest in over the long run. Step 4. Now you need to actually record your first episode. I know step 3 was recording your episode, but it was actually, picking out a style. 4 is actually recording your episode. You can do this any way you want. If you have a phone and you have a little microphone that plugs into the bottom of the phone, you can go on to the phone app and you can just press record and you can just start talking into the microphone, or you can go on to your actually hosting platform and you can record straight on there. I use Anchor. It is absolutely free. They don't even have a watermark on any of their things. They allow you to upload to any platform you want to upload to. You can do so much with Anchor. So I'm not even going to recommend Buzzsprout or any of the other. Just go with Anchor. Anchor is spelled Anchor. I'm not sponsored. If I was, I would say this is a video sponsor, but sadly, I wish I was. I'm not. But they just have really provided for me, and they allow me to do a lot of things. They allowed me to add intro music, outro music. They have a bunch of songs to select. They have a bunch of different transitions. They also have a bunch of different ways you can edit your audio and simple cut and splice in ways. And so you need to pick a way that works best for you while you're recording that. Now, what you could also do is download a free software that I use on my computer that's called Audacity. Audacity is completely free. And I know what you're saying, for somebody that's new to this is all new jargon, and you're like, I don't want a virus. I don't even know this kid. How do I know this is not a virus? Well, look around you. If you go to any person on how to start a podcast, they'll recommend you Audacity or GarageBand. Those are pretty credible sources. I've never gotten a virus in my entire life. They're absolutely free to download. I use it on my Mac perfectly fine. I love the software. It allows me to just plug my mic right in, my USB mic, press record, and start recording everything. I can export everything into a file. Then I can upload it onto Anchor. Everything is gold. Gold? Gold. It is perfect. Everything is awesome, especially when I'm using Audacity. But, of course, if you don't want to use Audacity, there's more paid versions, and you can get as complex and as expensive as you want. But I assume that when you're starting your podcast, you want to keep upfront costs as minimal as possible, so you'll probably just grab a microphone, plug it into your computer, and go on. Something to know about when you're recording. You need a microphone. You're probably thinking that the audio that is recording this episode is not the best quality. I'm going to input some footage from my podcast, and you'll say that that's a lot better quality because I'm actually using a professional microphone. The microphone I'm using right now is the in-house built-in camera on my Canon 90D, and so obviously it's a little more grainy, it's not so clear, and it could use some work. But of course, that's what we live with in 2021. So make sure you invest in actually a nice microphone because maybe the audios look good, or the visuals look good, even the thumbnail looks good, but as soon as you hear bad audio, man, you're out of there. You don't want to listen to anyone that goes, right? Exactly. So pick out a nice microphone, grab it for maybe $50, $100. I definitely suggest starting with a USB microphone because then you wouldn't have to worry about buying an audio interface with an XLR cable. You can instead just buy a microphone, plug it straight in your computer, and then just press record on Audacity or even press record on some photo app, and you can just start grinding it out and start making your episode. Now, editing. Editing is not that difficult unless you're somebody who stumbles a lot and makes a lot of mistakes and swears unconsciously and you just completely screw it up and botch it. I'm sitting here and this is all in one take, so you let me know how much I need to edit in my episodes. I don't think I need to edit a lot, but that's okay. So editing is not that important, but if you want to edit straight in Audacity, there's a tool that allows you to cut and remove any sections that you think are kind of iffy or kind of wishy-washy, and you can just get them right out of there. And I don't know why you would want to insert any other sounds. Maybe if you want to insert an ad, but Anchor allows you to do that. And then finally, once you have your podcast recorded, you need to export it from something like Audacity or whatever you recorded it on, put it into a file or a folder or upload it straight to Anchor, and then you can put it on any platform you want. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, literally anything you can imagine that hosts podcasts. So, with that said, now you need to find the co-host, which is what you're going to be using to help you upload your podcast hosting site. Mine is Anchor. Like I said, it's absolutely free. I've been using it for a year and a half, and I think you should probably use it too. So just go on, make an account, and then start uploading audio, start editing it, and then it allows you to add a title, a description, add episode number, add even a thumb art, which you should probably also have. You should have a podcast cover, which you can literally buy on Fiverr, another plug, Fiverr, which is an online tool that you can just outsource any type of tasks to for artists. Go on there and type podcast cover art. If you need a specific artist, I have one that I think is really, really good. I'm going to link it up in the show, and you can just go on there and for $5 buy a pretty banger podcast cover for your show. You probably need a photo of yourself that has a PNG, which essentially means no background, and you can make a pretty cool cover that way. So now that you have your podcast up and running, uploaded onto any platform that you possibly want, now it's time for marketing. Because guess what? You can have the best audio, the best content, the best concept, but if nobody hears it, nobody's going to know you. Like Grant Cardone says, if nobody knows you, nobody's going to flow you. And at the end of the day, this is kind of a monetization tool, and you kind of want to use it to make money. But if you're like me, it's a passion project, and I don't really care if it makes money or not. It's just whatever. I really do just enjoy talking into the microphone, and if it stays at 10 viewers my whole life, that's fine. But for those of you watching, you probably want to make some money. So you first need to start marketing it. Go on social media, maybe start a new page about your podcast, and just constantly upload and push out content. Go on to people that you listen to. If you listen to podcasts, go on to like Lewis Howes or Jay Shetty or Grant Cardone. Go to people that are being followed by them And then you should just go and follow all these people. See if any of these people are interested in podcasts. I especially find people like Lewis Howes the best because his entire thing is podcasts. So everybody that's following him likes podcasts. Follow all these people. If you find other smaller podcasts, maybe you can collaborate. Maybe you could be on their show. They could be on your show. That would be a fun little differential swap. But make sure the people you're adding onto your show are actually people of value, not just random strangers on the internet that don't have anything to say. One person I was going through Lewis Howes. I was just following everybody. All of a sudden, I found a Hollywood actress who happens to have a New York Times best-selling book, Sex and Love Addict Advice, Breonna Davis. It was an amazing interview. We had a great time. It's on my podcast, and now I'm close friends with her because of this tactic of just cold outreach. So make sure you're vetting properly and allowing the right people onto your show, but also just have fun with it and just be open to the possibility you might land on somebody who could change your life completely. It's like finding a little bit of a diamond in a rough, you know? So what you need to do to actually monetize your podcast is start getting ads. Because once you get enough viewers, something like Anchor will allow you to have sponsorships, and you can add sponsored deals right in there. They literally have a monetization tab. You can just go in, and they'll allow you, they'll search for brand deals with you, and you can just start talking about it at different segments. Just make sure that whatever you're actually talking about and actually sponsoring, you've actually tried it yourself. Don't just take sponsorships and brand deals because you're hungry for money. Because people see through right through that. When you're on the podcast and you're like, TrueMoo, I've tried this my entire life, but you don't even know what TrueMoo is. People are obviously going to know that you're bluffing, and people are going to know, well, I've never heard of that. I don't think this person even knows what that is. They're not going to buy it. But if it's something like Nike sneakers, now everyone's not going to get sponsored by a huge brand, but I'm saying that if you get sponsored by a brand, try their stuff, see if it's worthwhile, and if you love it, definitely partner with them. But if it's a Nike sneaker that you really like, oh my God, for the past 7 years, I've literally been wearing these sneakers every morning at 5 a.m. when I go running. It's given me the best experience because now you're telling a story. Now you're relating to yourself because people are obviously not just buying a product, they're buying an experience. So give them the experience they want, and then they're probably more likely to buy. That is my tip on monetization. You could also do sponsorships with actual companies outside of the ones that Anchor provides. You could do Patreon, which I haven't set up yet. Do whatever you want. I mean, there's so many different ways to monetize. You could even use podcasts as a way to direct traffic to your website, make online sales, do webinars, have an ebook that you're selling. So many different ways. There's this concept called the spoken wheel, essentially. So the wheel would be your podcasts, all right? How could you monetize that? Well, your spokes are all the different ways you could do it. There's obviously more than one spoke to a wheel, so you're going to find more than one way to monetize. You have ads, you have ebooks, you have webinars, you have events, you have retreats, you have direct sales, you have coachings, you have, whatever your company or your business is, just find out ways that you could fit in monetization onto the platform to try to make some money while you're doing it, just so you can justify spending the time to actually sit down and record podcasts. And finally, with that said and done, ladies and gentlemen, I am so glad you stuck around for another episode of the Alex Davis YouTube channel. Please leave your comments and all of the things down below, and even reach out to me on any of the social medias in the description below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know how I can improve, make this show better, so that we can have a fun experience and a fun time together. I love you all, and I hope to see you all in the next episode. Peace out.